Today is Wednesday, April the 1st, and that's no April Fool's joke. So here we go, another month. You can do it following Jesus Christ. And we at 2819 Followers are committed to help you follow Jesus right at home. I'm Pastor Dave, I'm a child of the King, and as always, let's get to it. Trusting in God is going to look like dealing with different circumstances, especially in difficult circumstances, especially when there's no specific answer or reason that you can think about. We see this in the psalmist dealing with these difficult situations in Psalm chapter 44, verses 9 through 26. In verses 9 through 14, we see God's hand of defeat and humiliation upon his own people. Yeah, that's right. You heard me say upon his own people. The word "you" referring to God is used over 7 times. You have rejected us. You have disgraced us. You have made us turn back. You have made us like sheep for slaughter. You have sold your people. You made us the taunt of our neighbors. You made us a laughing stock. And it's heavy. And God's own people experience this heaviness, this difficulty. And then in verse 17 through 21, we see the perplexion of God's own people experiencing this difficult time in view of their loyalty to God. In verse 17, God's people says, "We have not forgotten you. We have not been false to your covenant. Our hearts haven't turned away. Our feet haven't turned away. If we have forgotten you, or if we have went out and worshipped false gods, you would know about it." And here's the perplexion. In their minds, they say, "God, we are loyal to you." But then in verse 19, "Yet you, God, you have broken us. You have covered us with the shadow of death. Yet for your sake, we are being killed all day long." And they don't know what is going on. And so they ask the normal question, why? Verse 24, "Why do you hide your face? Why do you forget our affliction and oppression? Why are you sleeping?" And then the psalmist ends the chapter, and we see him trusting in God, although he doesn't understand, and there's no specific answer. And he trusts God in desperate prayer. In verse 23 through 26, he says, "Awake, rouse yourself, do not reject us forever. Rise up, come to our help, redeem us." And the psalmist is desperate for God, and he cries out to him in desperate prayer. I've heard a quote, and it stuck with me this entire time. And it said this: "Prayer is the confession of our dependence upon God." We've been talking about how do we trust God? Well, our prayer lives are a good indicator of how much we are trusting him. So take a look. What is your prayer life saying about how much do you trust in God? Yesterday, we asked 2 questions. Number 1, what does Jesus have power over? And we've seen Jesus' amazing power throughout the book of Mark. We've seen his power over nature, his power over the body, his power over sickness, his power over food. And in yesterday's reading, we see Jesus' power over the spirit world, over demons, where he has power to rebuke and command demons with just the words of his voice. I don't know about you, but this is the Jesus that I want to follow. The Jesus who has power over all things in life. The second question we asked is this. In verse 24, what is the medicine for unbelief? So the father with the demon-possessed child comes to Jesus and he confesses, "Jesus, I have belief, but I also have unbelief." And he says, "Jesus, I believe, help my unbelief." And while we're alive on earth, while we have these bodies, we will have both belief and unbelief collide in our own lives. But it is in those moments, in following Jesus, where we must cry out to God, the one who helps us, the one who helped the sick, the one who helps the fearful, the one who helps the enslaved, and the one who will help us in our unbelief. Call out to him and ask him to help your unbelief. Now, we're not going to probably be in cases where a child will be possessed. But there will be cases in life when we're tempted to find our acceptance and our purpose and meaning in our life through our social media comments and our likes. Or we're going to be tempted to believe that we're better off in isolation. Or we're tempted to be fearful or anxious. or have doubt. And it is in those cases where we must call out again to Jesus, the great helper. Jesus, I believe, but help my unbelief. Today's reading is from Mark chapter 9, verses 30 through 50. Our two questions for today are, number one, what is the great contrast of focus between Jesus and his disciples? And number two, what spiritual fruit do followers of Jesus need to be producing if they are to follow Jesus? What is that spiritual fruit? And then, how does that apply to your life? Today, we're praying for all of the teachers out there, having to adjust, having to adopt to a different way of teaching. We're praying for you for success. We're praying for you for creativity and for wisdom as you teach in a different way these days. Looks like we're going to have a whole month that will be at home. But you know what? You can still follow Jesus. You can especially follow Jesus right at home. Hope in God. And Lord willing, we'll see you tomorrow.